welcome everybody. Thank you. You know, even though we don't have sometimes a large attendance, we certainly have our audience through the Falmouth Community TV, which is a big benefit for us. But the topic that we're going to cover this month, and Kim is going to be doing the presentation, it's for continuity of operations planning, or what they commonly refer to as COOP. And it's an opportunity for governmental agencies, whether they're statewide or local, and it's also good for good business practices as well. And what COOP really details is what you would do in the case of an emergency, whether it was man-made, whether it was a natural, terrorism, anything that would cause a disruption in the normal course of your business, and what you would do for succession, what you would do for potentially moving your business elsewhere, keeping your essential activities available, whether it's for your employees or just for the town in general, or you know, for the business partners, or you know, obviously your customers. So it is a very good opportunity to discuss that, and Kim's going to kind of give a good overview of what that entails. The town has a kind of an informal, formal process for you know, for tackling some of these events. We have our emergency plan, or a CEMP, that's available. It's not updated on a regular basis because all the practices and the principles are there all the time. And anytime that we have an emergency where we stand up our emergency operations center, we're kind of working through that anyways, because we have in a lot of these storms that we're generally operating in this room for is generally because of a storm-related issue. We're kind of following somewhat of a COOP operation, because we're trying to keep things going over here, yet the agencies or the offices may be kind of shut down, employees can't make it into work, but we're keeping that continuity going, so there's no missing link. We have good good communications going with everybody that we have to, our partners of the DPW, for example, and we keep things going and we just don't shut down. And I think one of the good examples that, you know, where COOP was kind of highlighted was during COVID, because everybody started to work from home, and a lot of businesses had to make, you know, quick decisions because everything was fast and furious and it was changing every single day. And if you lived through it as, you know, in an agency or a business, you knew how that affected everybody, whether it was your employees or trying to do your operations or whatever the case may be, but everybody was being affected by it. We learned a lot from it, and a lot of it's behind us, but you know, these events sometimes give us the opportunity to kind of do things and then kind of practice it in real life. So with that being said, you know, we wanted to make sure that, you know, that Kim had the opportunity to do this PowerPoint and kind of outline some of the things that are necessary. She has worksheets that could be given out for anybody that wants to use it as a, you know, it's a template to kind of jot down things and maybe develop your own plan. And I won't steal the thunder, but that's what we're going to be doing today. And we're happy to have everybody here, and we'll then talk about our last, you know, LEPC meeting, which is going to be in May, and then we close down for the summer. So, Kim Strom.
Thank you, Chief.
Thank you.
All right. So as the Chief said, basically today we're going to go over an overview of what a COOP is, some of the COOP language that you may not be familiar with, what instituted the COOP, some of the benefits to you, whether you be you know, facilities manager of a property, or involved in an organization or business, or even a municipal department. So it's very broad ranging, and you can narrow it in to suit your particular entity. So basically a few things that we will cover today: the planning basics, talking about, you know, where the authority for COOP planning came from, some of the key components and the terms and phrases that you may not be familiar with, some of the key elements of the plan. These plans you'll find could be as large or as small as you want them to be. basically, and I'll get a little further into this, I sort of view the COOP as a grab-and-go plan as opposed to, as the chief said, our comprehensive emergency management plan, or maybe our all hazards mitigation plan, or perhaps the hazmat response plans. Those tend to be much larger documents. I kind of put two on the table there so you can see the depth and breadth of some of the information that might be in a plan like that. Then we'll sort of wrap up with what plan approval includes and maintenance. As the chief mentioned, maybe the Cmte components aren't always updated. That's our comprehensive emergency management plan, because the structure and the bones don't change, but I do go in each year to ensure that some of those other pieces that are transitional, like you know, the town manager or the police chief, those are two of our most recent changes in town, those contact informations need to be changed as well in those plans. So basically getting to the basics, what is a COOP? And the chief highlighted essentially, if you look at the bolded letters here and read that just as a sentence, that pretty much encapsulates exactly what the COOP is. It's an effort to ensure that primary missions or essential functions continue to be performed. So much of the COOP was rolled out. It states here that sentence came from the National Security Presidential Directive, NSPD 51. That was copied and pasted into Homeland Security Directive, HSPD 20. We all know the acronyms when we deal with emergency management. But truly the highest authority, where that trickled down from, was the U.S. Presidential Policy Directive, PPD 40. And copy and paste it, it all says the same thing, it all basically means the same thing. So basically here's, you know, what these documents are telling you. These are the policies that are underneath those directives. Massachusetts Emergency Management Agency also supports this planning under their continuity and safety planning guidance. You'll see that I also cited a website underneath, and that's where, if you're interested in some additional information about this type of planning, you can go to the MEMA website on mass.gov. So the trickle-down effect also hits Falmouth. In our home rule charter, we have a section under Chapter 110 for emergency management. So you can see that there are several layers. You know, you go from the hierarchy of the White House and the President all the way down to little old Falmouth, but everybody understands the importance of emergency management. So what are the directives for a business or an organization? Well, there may not be any formal directives. You know, I'm not sure if MBL has one, or, you know, mom and pop on Main Street, but usually these will come down from the CEOs in large corporations. But in small businesses, it doesn't matter if you're a mom and pop operation or or even, you know, a business with 100+ employees. The importance of a COOP is broad range. So if you just read through some of the benefits of planning, basically the third one here is one I like to tell businesses about, and it's no one wants to lose money, right? It's very important that that your business keeps going, and also you don't want to put your reputation on the line. So what do the plans include for a business? Well, they're going to include names, assets, partners, human resource functions, and other information. And the goal of the continuity plan is basically to handle anything from a major disruption, like a hurricane, to minor incidents like maybe it's a flood. We've seen that in different instances where, you know, a business is flooded, could be a water main break. But the goal is, as the chief said, you want to keep the business running. So the primary purpose and objectives of the COOP is, one, to maintain your essential operations, to ensure succession of leadership, and I'll get into that a little bit more in a moment. You want to make sure that your employees and the public know what's going on, right? So if your business has to close because you have a water main leak, you need to ensure that there are pieces in place that you can let them know. And also, if you have to relocate your business, that the public knows and your employees know what's going on as well. One of the other pieces that's always missing in emergency management is your, basically your vital assets. What are your vital assets? Well, it could be the computer that I'm working on, but it also could be the documents I have in the basement, right? So you have to kind of take a big picture look at everything that you need to ensure you keep in order for your business to run smoothly. So basically, when you're creating your own coop, some of the things that you want to ask is, well, what are those critical things that we need? Who is going to ensure that those critical things are taken care of? How is all of this going to be accomplished? Where are we going to do this? Can we stay in our present location, or do we have to relocate? Some of the other important questions are, who's going to be in charge? So today the chief is in charge, but if the chief is on vacation and something happens, who's his second in command? Well, in our command structure, it's very easy. We go chief, deputy chief, down the line, right? Same with like the police department. Police chief, down the line. But when you get into a business setting, you have maybe your manager and assistant manager, but if the two of them aren't available to take care of everything, then who comes next? So you have to think about a succession plan outside of the major, players that are usually in place. And then once everything is over, we need to look back and consider, all right, well, then how do we get back to normal? So this particular slide, I was looking at it earlier and I thought, geez, this should have been sort of reversed, because we kind of know who, what, where, when, why, but if we look at the COOP terms and we say, all right, well, what is alternate operating facility? Well, that's the where. That's an easy one, right? And then function priorities and COOP phases. Well, when do we do each step? So all of this would be laid out in your plan. And then, of course, the return to normal, if you need to return to a particular location. I have a great slide that talks about that. So the COOP plan is basically set up into phases, and these phases are, even though they have particular titles to them, those particular phases may change depending on whether or not you're a municipal department, whether you're a small business or a large business, but basically they will remain the same in the sense that each of these sub-lines in here is something that each of you would need to do. So this is the slide I love with the ins and outs. Basically, this talks about reconstitution, moving things around, what types of things that you need. So this slide is sort of all encompassing because, we talked about, if you go back to the last slide, implementation, operation, preparation, and you see in this slide that there are a lot of kind of moving parts, and that's basically, what you need to lay out in your COOP. So what are the actual elements in a COOP plan? So one of the first important elements would be the essential functions, and this is identifying the services and the functions that must continue. So in my day, my daily routine, I might come in and I might check the roster, and maybe it's a payroll day, or maybe it's a bill pay day, or maybe it's a day that I work on the budget. Well, in the event where you have to put a COOP in place, some of those essential functions or those daily routine pieces are going to be put to the wayside. But the bills do still need to be paid, and payroll does still need to be put out, but I may not, need to work on the budget today because there's, a storm amidst, or we're getting ready to relocate. So prioritizing what your essential functions are versus your daily routine and daily functions is something that the plan is going to allow you to do as well. And just like anything else, you prioritize, as far as levels go. So what is most important, that's what we need to do as soon as possible. What cannot wait? In this impending storm or this flood, the water's coming down the hallway, what do we need to take care of right now? What do we need to take care of within the first 12 hours? And then it stretches out. Do we not have to worry about this? This is a priority 3. We don't have to worry about this for another couple of days, So maybe you do need to relocate your business and you need to bring all of the laptops, but you don't necessarily need to bring, your tax returns from 2021 or 1995, right? So you're going to look at prioritizing exactly what you need to do in a sequence of, hours and days and weeks. The other piece is to look at essential positions, and I highlighted this a little earlier when I talked about, the chief would be there and then the deputy chief would be next, but who comes after the deputy chief, or who comes after your department head, or who comes after your business manager. So in any of the plans, whether it's the COOP plan, whether it's the comprehensive emergency management plan, we never put a name. We always just put a position, because as I said, one of the major things I have to update in the Cmte is always people, right? So the police chief was Chief Dunn, now it's Chief Lord. The town manager was X, now it's Y. So, and each position requires a primary individual and 2 alternates, because even if we create our COOP today and we say, okay, so Mary Smith is going to be the main person in charge of this plan. If anything happens, we go directly to Mary and we say, okay, you're activating the COOP, what's next? Well, Mary's not there, and so John Smith is the next person in line, but John's not available either. So there has to be a couple layers in that succession plan. You can't always anticipate that same person is going to be there all of the time, because we know that that's usually not the case. I think that, and the chief can attest to the fact that one of the first major storms he had to deal with to be in here in the EOC, he was acting as the chief's replacement because the chief was out of state. Primary and alternates need to be aware of and trained on the emergency roles. So it's one thing to say, okay, here's our number 1 person, and if number 1's not available, here's 2 and 3. But if 2 and 3 don't know what they're supposed to do when it comes time to activate that COOP plan, then being in the dark isn't going to get you to that end result of ensuring that all of your essential functions are still going to be in play. So the vital resources that I mentioned earlier on, some of these things that are always easily forgotten. We talk about this in regular emergency management and putting a go bag together and making sure that you have your important documents like, passports, insurance paper, etc. Well, it's no different when you think about a business, right? So in a business, you need to ensure that you have your action plans, your line of succession paperwork. It's one thing to know, all right, well, I remember in a meeting when we went over the COOP, when we did our annual review of it, that, Jane and John and Stephen were the 3 people that were in charge of this if anything happened. But if you don't have the sheet of paper or the document or the computer that is storing all of the contact information for those 3 individuals, then you're missing a key piece of vital information that you would need. Legal and financial documents also, payroll contracts and personnel files, because you don't know how long this event is going to go on or how devastating it is going to be. Email databases are huge. As we mentioned, computers, phones. You also need to ensure that you have internet as well in your new location if you do have to relocate, or if you're staying in your existing location. If there's been any infrastructure damage, then internet is going to be a necessity for you to continue with your vital practices, then you may need an alternative. Communication, I mentioned that a bit about the numbers of the, the individuals that would be in charge, but it's very important to have some type of a calling tree or know essentially who's going to be calling who, because I'm sure Peter doesn't want 5 people calling him saying, okay, we're going to open up the EOC and you need to be there at 7 o'clock, right? Well, those 5 people, instead of all of them calling Peter, 4 others could be calling 4 other individuals that are very important to this piece of the pie. And again, not just office phones, but you would need cell phones, alternative phone numbers, alternative methods of getting a hold of people. I would drill this down even further to say you also want to know what their address is, their physical address, right? Because we're talking about from the smallest, say maybe it's a 24-hour snowstorm, to a multi-day event, storm-wise, or it could also very well be a man-made disaster in which you don't know what capabilities you're going to have. So you kind of need to plan for all of those things. If all the cell towers are down, then cell phone numbers aren't going to be relevant in that situation. So approval and maintenance, and this is where your leadership is key, because 1, they need to ensure that they are reviewing the plan for and with you, and 2, it's always good to have a sign off for that as well and a buy-in for it from your leadership. And most certainly the bottom line is leadership basically needs to know what's in the plan too, right? So if the chief were to say to me, I need you to write our COOP for us, that's all well and good and I'd be happy to do it, but if he doesn't know what I wrote in there and what the plan entails, then as far as leadership goes, that leaves us at a disadvantage for sure. And that can go all the way up the chain as well. If you're a company and it's your CEO that is requiring you under their authority for you to have a plan in place, I think a lot of the nursing homes and such, they have to have a particular type of plan, and that's reviewed by their the larger corporations each year. So leadership approval, kind of just reviewed this already, but you need to review certain pieces that are most important, right? So as I mentioned about the Cmte, a lot of the bone structure is not going to change. It's always going to be the same. Our infrastructure is, it won't go away. It might move. Our police department may be on Main Street today and it might be on Gifford Street tomorrow, right? But those types of address changes and things of that nature are very rare. The big pieces are the people that are in place and those that are I call them the players in the plan essentially. But so reorganization and staff changes, also contact information, all of that stuff needs to be reviewed on an annual or biannual. And then where are you going to put the plans? So you see the paper plans here. That big blue binder is, it's not something that we print out anymore. Our comprehensive emergency management plan is stored in the cloud with MEMA, so we will always be able to reach it, and I go through MEMA on their platform to be able to update that plan. That particular book has probably been sitting on a shelf in an office, I would say probably since 2010. That was when we did print everything out, Peter, all kinds of paper. Now much of these plans are digital, so storage is much easier. And also when you're trying to gather everything up so that things aren't ruined when your business is being flooded, you want to grab this, you don't want to grab a bunch of those. So just think about the best place and make sure that it's in an area in a cloud or wherever where more than one person has access. Again, it's that succession. So if I'm the only person who has the capabilities of getting in to that stored COOP plan, then I'm not around to initiate that plan, then it does no good for me to be the only person who has access and knowledge of where the plan is stored. Maintenance, we basically talked about this already. I won't spend time on this, but basically The bolded area, title not named, that's very important whenever you're creating any type of emergency plan, is, you know, it's the title. The chief of police will do this, the fire chief will do that, the town manager will do this, the DPW director is in charge of that. So I think one of the important things, and this goes back to our last LEPC meeting when we had a tabletop exercise, a plan is fabulous on its own, but it does no good sitting on a shelf or sitting in on the cloud. You have to exercise that plan, because you don't know if all of the pieces that you wrote in your COOP are going to work, right? It all sounded good on paper, and we've all been there before. It all sounds great on paper, but when you try and put that plan into action, there might be some pieces that are missing. So having some sort of like a mock exercise where you take all of your employees together and you walk through each piece of the plan. What are we going to grab? And I'm not saying get boxes out and stick all of your computers in there, you know, but you can essentially pretend to do something like that. Put a scenario together and see how all of your components fit together. That's the most important thing of any plan, is the training and exercises that take place after the plan has been instituted. Part of emergency planning relies on incident command, and many civilians are not familiar with the incident command or ICS components. The fire department, most fire departments are very much entrenched into incident command, but these are great, very quick online courses that anyone can take, and basically it's managing, you know, managing and knowing disasters, and you can go anywhere from ICS 100 to ICS 400. MEMA outlines basically, you know, who is the best person to take these types of levels. So 400 is essentially saved for your town managers, your board of selectmen, your mayor. 300 is DPW director, fire chief, police chief. 200 might be, you know, your second tier level, and 100 is basic, and I would recommend that everybody at least takes the 100 level, because that kind of gives you like a general broad overview of emergency management and some of the things that you need to think about. It's sort of what I consider, you know, a little eye-opener course to take. And I already talked about scheduling tabletop exercises to help identify any gaps in your plan that you might have. There are a lot of additional resources out there. Now this says business continuity plan test, and so this kind of relates to you know, the privately owned businesses, but again, everything can be tweaked, and this could be for an organization, this could be for your, you know, your nursing homes, your MBL, your HUI. What you want to do is you want to take your plan and then you want to test that plan. So I gave you a great website that gives you a template for just that. You can go in and there's a situational manual that basically has an outline of what they want you to do, and you write in the scenarios, and it's very easy to maneuver and to kind of manipulate to exactly what you're looking to accomplish. The best thing about the testing that I can pass on, or the most important thing, is only have a few people know what the SITMAN is going to entail, and keep the rest a secret or a surprise for the rest of your personnel or membership or employees, because that's really where the rubber hits the road, and you can see whether or not this plan is going to work, because they have absolutely no preconceived ideas. My favorite quote from Ben Franklin: "Failing to plan is planning to fail." It's one of the probably most cited quotes in emergency management, and obviously it goes back to Ben Franklin, so it's been around for quite a while, and you know, the impact of this statement has not changed. The reality of the statement most certainly hasn't changed. If you have nothing in place, then you know, you're putting yourself at a huge disadvantage. All right, any questions? Good.
I know how it works when we have the EOC opened up over here, over the past storms. It works out well. And the town front office usually keeps a database of all the cell phone numbers of everybody and updates that and sends it out, so it works well.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of times we can't be in the room, but we're on the road and we're always consistently working with emergency dispatch and the chief with everything that's going on, so you definitely do need a plan. We're lucky over the last several years, Eversource has been able to sit in the room with us. Actually, having a representative sit in the room with you is good, you know. But yeah, definitely want to have a plan.
And Peter brings up a good point, you know, as the director of Public Works, he's not always able to sit at a table and delegate, you know, emergency pieces here and there. He's out at the road making sure that all of that is going on. So his succession plan would allow for his secondary person to be in the EOC to take care of what needs to be done in here, while he's out doing another piece of the pie for what they need to accomplish and what their emergency plan requires in the event of whether it be a snowstorm or a hurricane or any other large event going on in town.
So, I mean, people can put this to their own business or what have you, but like we have 2 programs. We usually sit with 2 computers. One computer is the GIS of all the roads and streets in the whole town. That could be your company with their buildings. And then on the other side, we have all the vehicles with that are by through GPS. So if a call comes in, we can dispatch the closest vehicle, the closest truck to that site, so we know where they are around town at all time. Works for us.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Does anyone in this room already have a COOP plan? Good. Maybe after today you will.
You will, yeah.
Yep. I do have some templates that I'd like to pass out and just kind of have everybody take a look at them, and we can sort of go through them together. And if any questions come up with regard to, you know, what should we be putting here?
Yeah, so just to kind of add a few things because of, you know, our involvement, and Kim made a good point about, you know, the fire department is an emergency service, so we're 24/7, 365, but we live in the moment, so anything can happen at any given time. By far, most of the activity that we have in the fire department is very routine. And when I say routine, it's because we primarily go to a lot of medical calls, and we have a lot of data, which is very helpful. It kind of shows us what calls we generally go on, and we're familiar with a lot of the different businesses that we have to go to, or health care facilities and such. So it's kind of second nature. But in the midst of that, we can have some crisis occur right away, and everybody has to react differently. And having, you know, tabletop exercises and stuff, you know, when we get together and we have a scenario, it's just kind of a shared moment with everybody to discuss whatever the element is of the plan or the exercise at that given training program. And everybody just throws things back and forth, and I find that the discussion is kind of slow to start because everybody's a little uncomfortable about throwing in their 2 cents, and everybody knows that there's no wrong answer. You know, just say something and we all learn from one another. And in the emergency service side of things, when, you know, we kind of gear ourselves up to be making decisions very quickly, and when we have a real life scenario in front of us, we actually work a little better because it's happening very quickly, and because of our emergency planning that we do in our incident management, we can get through it, and ultimately what they say is you mitigate the circumstances in front of you and you try and bring it to a successful conclusion. if you have a business or an agency or an organization, in our case it's municipal, if you don't have a plan in place and you don't exercise it and you don't talk about it, then when things happen, you know, everybody's looking to one person to make a decision, or everybody's kind of, you know, looking around a dark room without a flashlight. They're all kind of lost a little bit. So for us, anytime we have a big emergency, we have what they call a post-incident analysis. And I think that's important because anybody could do that for their own business or their own organization. You have a big snowstorm, or say we lost power, and we've had some storms that came up, and it was 50 degrees out during one of the October no-name storms came, and it created several days worth of issues for us. You know, we knew there was something coming, but it wasn't anything big, and then it just whipped up, and we had coastal issues, we had electrical issues, we had schools in place, and there was a lot of conversations going back and forth. Even one town over, I had the fire chief asking me about fuel, and luckily we have available fuel, so I was like, we can help you. So but things happen so quickly, and we start to talk about things, but we usually organize it so there is this kind of extension, not just one person, but you have layers, and you have other people that are there to kind of delegate things to them, and they work things out. So whether it's a large or a small incident, or whether it's a large or a small agency, all the elements needed to get you through successfully to continue your mission essential activities is there. So for us, incident management, which is what we do on a regular basis, it's generally small in nature for us, because most of our incidences aren't these massive wildfires or these massive active shooter, incidences where, if it's dramatic activity that's going on and it goes across jurisdictional lines, meaning multiple towns, states, and things like that are all being affected. It could be on a national level too. But incident management is what they call it. It's scalable, so it can build up or it can stay small. And I think that what Kim outlined here is very important for everybody when she's asking. She didn't put anybody on the spot asking if you didn't have a coop. I mean, most people don't probably have a coop, but you probably have a verbal discussion amongst your employees when a storm's coming. If you know the storm's coming and there's going to be 30 inches of snow predicted, you probably talk about what your business activity is going to be. Essential workers, are the generators running? Do you have enough fuel? Do you have enough food? If you have a small business, what are you going to do with your employees? Is it something that you can do? I think one of the things that over the last several years or more, that's been a big benefit is that most of our computer systems and our software are cloud-based. So you can pick up your laptop and go. Whereas older businesses and older structures had in-business servers, and if you had a flood and that server was sitting in the basement, it's gone. You just lost all of your information. Whereas cloud-based, as we like to say, it's in the cloud. It's somewhere and it's stored. You have access to that, so you can do it remotely. And a lot of our technology now is gearing towards that. So in the fire department, we work with emergency communications. We work with the DPW, the police department. We all kind of work together, and we're all kind of have these intertwined databases that are available to us, and we can access them, but we don't have to necessarily have a hard server available anymore because it's stored elsewhere. I don't even know where the cloud lives, but I know there's a cloud. We see it every single day. And as far as training, like for us, I mean, that's my hen scratch over there, but I do training once in a while with our personnel or new dispatchers, and we talk about incident command. And we have to, when we look at certain emergencies that we go to, we have our own acronyms, we have our own language for how we do things. But my guys all know how they talk that language and they know how to operate through that. I don't necessarily think that any of these ICS programs, 100, 300, really goes too deeply into that, but it's geared up for anybody to kind of manage what they need to in a crisis. And for the most part, let's face it, most of our emergencies that affect towns and municipalities and state government are usually storm-based, because we can, we know that we're coming up on hurricane season. We know that once September finishes and hurricane season's over, now we're getting into some nasty weather. We're getting cold weather, and we have freeze-ups, and we have snowstorms and things like that. But we're blown away with forecasts that tell us 7 days in advance. So for anybody to be surprised about something, it's in this day and age, you really were missing. You must have been asleep for 7 days. So everybody has the opportunity to be prepared. Everybody has the opportunity to have these little plans, and you don't have to necessarily have this big formal plan, because this is the town of Falmouth. And I had this conversation up at Falmouth Hospital, and I was going over their Cmte with them, and we're just talking about the fact that if anything happens at the hospital, generally the fire department's there, and they come to us a lot of times to help manage what's going on if it's something that is involving their infrastructure, especially if it was a fire, power outage, water, a big water outage, or whatever the case may be. And like I told them, I said most of the time that Cmte is in a shelf, and it's in an office, and it's locked up, and the emergency's at 1:30 in the morning on a Sunday, when they have travelers all working in the hospital and all the administration's missing. So trying to read through that book, never gonna happen. So you have to have just a formal discussion with your staff. You just have to have that understanding, should you have anything. If you go up to the hospital, everybody's got tags. Peter's got a little name tag, but up at the hospital, on the back side of the tag, they have what the race procedures in there for, fires in the building. So, if somebody, all of a sudden there's a fire, and if they're thinking, because they should be, they could look at it and they can see what the 4 elements of response is gonna be, for the staff. So there's all these little tricks of the trade, but I highly recommend that if you are part of an organization where you have mission critical things, whether you're taking care of people, whether you have a very significant business that people depend on, Steve's Pizza, for example, we want to make sure the power gets on ASAP for us, because he's available to us sometimes. But in the past he's been able to provide a lot of food for everybody, because he knows that people need to eat. So things like that, can really uplift some community. People in the community that might be out of power for a few days and know that there's things going on. And people like that, or business owners will try and get together and try and make sure things are working so that they can continue to support the community. So with that being said, I would hope that if you had any questions regarding COOP, whether you had any need for anything on the emergency planning side of it, please don't hesitate to give us a call. As Peter pointed out, and Steve comes over here, when we have this room going, there's just a lot of discussion. It's a little noisy in here, but everybody knows what their responsibilities are. Everybody knows what their job is. And when it comes to street plowing or removing debris from the roads, tree damage, and working with our electrical utility or cable or phone or whatever, everybody's talking to one another, and they can take care of an issue while I'm taking care of an issue and somebody's doing this, but we all come together and try and solve an issue. And again, for each of you, if you're within an organization, it's okay to not know what the answers are, because everybody can work together to find the answer, because all you're trying to do is to continue to support the functionality of whatever you're dealing with, or you're just trying to make sure that everybody is not stressing out and kind of managing the chaos a little bit. We do it daily. We don't have fires all the time, but we certainly have our moments, and when we do, at the beginning of the year, for example, I had 2 house fires within a few hours of one another. So we got to get it. We don't normally have that happen. It does once in a while, but you got to get everything back in order. So anytime we have an incident, we always come back and we get everything ready again for the next emergency. It might be a month away, but in this instance, it was with the personnel that were finishing up were all just kind of in one spot, and all of a sudden we had to go on another call for another structure fire, and everybody was there, and all the equipment was ready to go, and we were able to go right back to work again. So if we would just, we'll take care of it tomorrow, you know, nothing's gonna happen. If we did that, we would have been caught, you know, unprepared. So that's all it is. Even in your own homes, you know, generators, fuel, water, all those things, if you're doing, you know, you're essentially doing COOP in your life, so you might as well bring that to the table wherever, you know, you're trying to support your organization. So we hope this was a little helpful. We hope for the general public it was helpful. People just need to be prepared and not wait to the last minute. Just, you know, keep having these conversations with everybody. And again, whatever you need, if we can provide any resources, we can try to provide any, you know, assistance in any way, please don't hesitate to, you know, to reach out to us, and we'll see what we can do to help everybody. And I appreciate everybody taking the time out of the day to come here. We got this done within our usual hour. Kim can express to everybody what we're gonna try and do next month unless we haven't decided yet, but at least we know
It's a
that
surprise.
it'll be our last meeting, but you know, for you know, this cycle, because we'll be done for June, July, and August, and so May will be our last LEPC meeting until September. So we'll put something together, and we hope everybody comes to that, and whatever, you know, little information. But for us, we're already starting to gear up for fireworks. We've already been talking about the road race already. We started that about a month ago, and we're talking about other special events in town. We're talking about everything. Every season it's the same thing. We're going through a huge, you know, a litany of things that we have to start preparing for and start talking about it and get everybody back acclimated again. So, you know, our planning is on a regular basis, and you know, it's just the nature of the beast for all of us. So again, so we'll see you at the third Thursday of May, and I don't know what the date that is, but we'll see you then, and I appreciate everybody coming here. If there's any questions, feel free to, you know, chat with us before you leave, or otherwise, enjoy the rest of the day. I don't know when it's gonna start getting warm out, but these frost advisories keep
Next week.
annoying everybody, but
Next week. Thank you, Chief.
thank you, everybody. Thank you.
Good job.